All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this evening's meeting of the East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency. It's August 9th. The time is at what looks like about 7:02. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we have seated Phyllis Berger, our secretary, Mr. Jason Diebel, Kristen Chantrell, our vice chair, and Doreen Ryan. We do have a quorum. We have a few members missing, but we have just enough. And also, Mr. Daigle is here, our ex officio. Good evening, Mr. Daigle. We've done the pledge. We're going to move to our additions to the agenda. We do have potential addition to the agenda to add new business, the application of Kristen Clark, PE, for Cold Spring Lot Management, LLC, John Drabick, owner, for Nottingham Hills Subdivision Phase 5, prepared for Kristen T. Clark, English Harbor Asset Management, LLC, for an 8-lot subdivision of property at 121 Upper Patagonia Road, East Lyme Assessors Map 35.0, Lot 44. Mr. Gaishel, before we go, the reason this is a last-minute addition?
They submitted their applications last week with fee. So technically, today is the date of receipt for the regulations. It's the next regularly scheduled meeting of the agency, or 35 days after, whichever is sooner. So the application was submitted. What I would note is that it's lacking the soils report, which is noted as Exhibit A. I talked to Attorney Paul Gary. He indicated he would get that over to us by in business today. I still have not received it. I imagine it's on its way. That said, I don't know if you have enough information to determine whether or not it needs a public hearing, whether that should even go forward in September. The clock does start to tick. We have 65 days to render a decision or hold a public hearing. I believe the 65 days runs out on October 14th. Our meeting is on the 18th.
14th?
Yep. Our next regular meeting in October is on the 18th due to the holiday. So it might push us, we discuss this in September. If we decide we need a public hearing, we would have to hold probably most likely a special meeting on October 4th. The first one which we could do. Or pursuant to the regs, the commission would find the application incomplete and deny.
Okay. So, you're saying that we don't have the soil scientist information, and you expected to have it in this moment.
Gary indicated getting it over to us by the end of business today.
Okay.
We had received it with the application last week. We didn't get it Friday. Otherwise, it does look like it has everything else that's going to go forward.
Okay.
So the clock is ticking on us because you received an application, but it doesn't have all the information that we really require to.
So technically, today is the day of receipt of that application. Pursuant to Section 8. Section 8.4 of the regs, date of receipt shall be the day of the next regular scheduled meeting of the agency, immediately following the day of submission to the agency or its agent of such petition, application, request, or appeal for 35 days after such submission, whichever is sooner. Then 8.7 says incomplete applications may be denied. Mr. Garrity pointed out that at Section 5 says at any time during the review period, the applicant shall provide such additional information as the agency may reasonably require a request for such additional information shall not stay the time limitations as set forth in subsection 11.2 of these regulations, meaning he has time to submit the information. That's, I think, his position on it. So,
wouldn't it work for his advantage if we were to deny it due to incomplete in this moment, allow him to resubmit next month, and then it would hit that date of receipt being our next meeting, and then we'd be within 65 days for the public hearing if needed?
that would be more advantageous to us. I don't know if that would
he incurred double the cost in filing
He's
his
incurred
application.
all the costs, so that would not be
Oh,
something he wants to do.
Could we waive that?
I don't know that the agency has the ability to waive it, because these are set by ordinance.
Well, he is a developer. He knows that there are rules,
Yeah.
He's representing.
and he knew that it was due.
I would say that he knew that it was required for the submittal. I mean, again, he is arguing that our own regulations allow him time to submit. My comment to him is we would accept this as an application, we would start the clock ticking, we have discussion at the regular meeting, and determination at the end of the hearing or not.
So can I, point of order here, this is just a discussion whether or not we should even discuss it, correct?
Correct.
I feel like we're discussing it already.
I'd like to make a motion that we don't add it to the agenda.
You know,
Seems the simplest process.
Or just-
Mr. Upton, you don't need a motion not to add it. You need a motion to add it.
Okay.
So it just wouldn't be added, and it would be up for, just know that we received the application, and be up for discussion in our next regular scheduled meeting.
But we don't have a September meeting.
We do have September meeting.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, 65 days. from-
We'd miss the public
Yeah.
hearing deadline. Right.
We'd have to have a special meeting.
Right.
Open a public hearing, in which case we could do, open it and continue. And then we have 35 days to conduct that hearing.
Okay.
and he's not here anyway,
No,
right?
he's believing that his application is just being received today.
Okay.
Well, that's it. John, to add to the agenda.
Yeah, he's just not at it.
All right.
Okay.
Not hearing a motion to add it, we'll move on. Item number 3 of our agenda, public delegations. Public delegations are a time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters. Issues or concerns related to approved wetland permits and in-house proposals or general topics of discussion are open to comment. Agenda items, referrals, applications, subject to a decision by the commission, a public hearing, or in litigation may not be discussed. The members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make comment during delegations. Do we have any members of the public that might want to step forth and speak to us and we can't talk back?
Well, my discussion is directed towards the subject of the hearing. Should I wait
Yep.
until they
Please,
present?
yes, sir, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, this is a good time. I always find this confusing, and I imagine it to be confusing. If you had a mosquito problem that for some reason you thought the Wetlands Agency might address, something that's not on our agenda or not an issue we're dealing with, someone, we've seen it many times, someone wants to pop up and sit and say, hey, do you guys know that these guys are cutting trees down over here, or this is happening, and we don't know about it. So that's really the idea of public delegation. Is there anyone else that might want to say something? All right, not hearing any, we're moving on to item number 4, public hearing. We have the application of Howard W. Hale, applicant, Habitat for Humanity, owner, to conduct regulated activities, including but not limited to construction of 2 new proposed single-family dwellings and associated appurtenances at property identified in the application as 99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 07.14, lots 43, 42, and 41.
Mr. Chairman, for the applicant, I do have several items for the record.
All right.
Stand at the podium. We have Exhibit A is the application of Mr. Howard Hill for construction of two single-family dwellings and associated appurtenances at property located at 99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, Nyack, Connecticut. Tax Assessor's Map number 7.14, lots number 43, 42, and 41. Exhibit B, landowner authorization letter dated 7/2/21. Exhibit C is a written narrative in support of the application to the East Lyme Inland Wetland Agency dated 7/6/21. Exhibit D is the list of abutters. Exhibit E, soils report by E&T Cole, RSS, PWS, dated April 29, 2021. Exhibit F, storm drainage computations for 99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, East Lyme, Connecticut, by Suzanne P. Choate, P.E. of Design Professionals, Inc., dated July 6, 2021. Exhibit G is a statewide inland wetlands and watercourses activity reporting form. Exhibit H is a certificate of mailing notice to abutters dated July 26, 2021. Exhibit I is a legal notice of public hearing record recorded with the town clerk dated 7/16/2021. Exhibit J is a legal notice of public hearing published in the July 28, 2021 and August 5th, 21 editions of the Day newspaper. Exhibit K is the site development plan entitled
99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, site plan application 99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, East Lyme, Connecticut, MBLU number 7.14-41, 42, and 43, dated 7/6/21 by Susan P. Choate, PE of Design Professionals, Inc. Exhibit L was response comments from the town engineer, Bill Shear, Deputy Director of Public Works, PELS. Exhibit M are the site development plan entitled 99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, site plan application 99, 101, and 103 South Beechwood Road, East Lyme, Connecticut, MBLU number 7.14-41, 42, and 43, dated 7/6/21, revised through 8/3/2021 by Susan P. Choate, PE of Design Professionals, Inc. Exhibit M is email from Suzanne Choate dated 8/6/2021 with attached product catalog excerpt pages 29 and 30, 12-inch catch basin series. Exhibit O is email correspondence from B. Shear, PELS, Deputy Director of Public Works, Town Engineer, dated 8/6/2021. And that is all I have for the record. And these items are not entirely on our website?
They are all, most of them are in Exhibit A as part of the application. I just wrote them out. So you know that we should have that. Material in the application.
All right, so at this point, we want to hand it over, thank you, Mr. Gaishel, to the applicant for their presentation for us, please.
Good evening. I am Suzanne Choate, registered professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I work for Design Professionals as a senior project manager, and I'm here on behalf of Howard Hale, the applicant, who has an interest in purchasing the property from Habitat for Humanity, properties as indicated by Mr. Gaishel. The proposal that we have set before you is for 2 houses on 3 lots. There are 3 existing building lots, all which have wetlands on them. And we have chosen to eliminate, in our proposal, eliminate one of the lots to use as mitigation for the disturbance we will need to do in order to put the 2 houses on. The project proposes a disturbance of 0.04 acres within the wetlands, 0.015 acres within the upland review area of the wetlands. Actually, the entirety of the properties is within the upland review area. I have attended several meetings, once on site with this commission. I did a brief presentation at your last meeting, and I have since that time met on site once again with the town engineer, addressing some of the concerns that he had on site. So from that meeting, I have made some changes from the plan you saw previously. There is the addition of 2 lengths of pipe, one behind each house to convey the flow, just right behind the houses so that there's a little bit of a rear yard available. And the addition of an inflow pipe within the existing wetland, which will lead to a yard drain and a catch basin in the road. The catch basin will drain southerly, and it doesn't show up on my exhibit, but it is in the plans, southerly to just about the corner of Parkview Drive and South Beechwood Road. There's an existing drainage ditch, so it will convey flow to that drainage ditch. It's behind 2 other properties there. The 2 properties that is behind, one is 9092 and the other one is 94 Laurelwood Drive. It's actually, they face the adjacent road, the parallel road to the east. We have proposed erosion control devices based on the latest Connecticut sedimentation and erosion control guidelines, including construction entrance and silt fence. Mr. Shear, the town engineer, has reviewed our revised plans as well. He had a few comments on them as well, which we have discussed since then, and I think we're in agreement that we can address those as conditions of approval. I forgot to mention, I have Ian Cole here with me today, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to him for a few minutes.
Podium, or you choose to stand up, use the microphone, please.
It's on? All right. For the record, Ian Cole, professional registered soil scientist, professional wetland scientist out of Middletown, Connecticut, working with the applicant and the design team on aspects of the development. As was stated earlier, there is a wetland figure that kind of bisects a central portion of the property. There's 3 lots of record. 2 of the lots are being developed, and the 3rd lot essentially offers up a 1-to-1 mitigation ratio, incorporating a total of 47 new shrub plantings, as well as, if you think about this project overall, it really is also, the addition of preserving the entire lot, a 5,000 square foot lot here embedded into the neighborhood, because essentially this entire 3rd lot now is encumbered from any future development whatsoever. I think it's important to also note that the wetlands, generally speaking, exist here. It's an old remnant wetland that's deeply embedded in the neighborhood. It's partly created as a result of the properties to the south being developed, and the creation of South Beach Road really kind of changed the topography in a way that it retards water long enough and kind of cut off the relief elevation point that was probably the historic point that probably originally, freely drained this area out. So, it's a remnant wetland in the neighborhood. All these lots are developed, and as such, it is already exposed to the typical disturbances you would see in a residential neighborhood. Refuge dumping, things of that nature, other properties discharging onto this property. So, it's my opinion, based on the limited functions and values of the existing wetland, the proposed mitigation will enhance, as well as, these water quality basins, while not necessarily mitigation factors, they do provide an opportunity to renovate the stormwater as it flows through the site in a responsible way. So I think overall, while there is a reduction in the square footage of physical wetlands, it's a responsible development in incorporating the mitigation that's offered up here. Basically, this is offsetting, if you think about it, the functions and values that are probably lost that are up here, with the enhancement function of renovating the stormwater before it even reaches the functioning wetland.
Well, they'll present and then we'll have.
I own the property back behind it, and I have some questions.
Okay.
We'll get there whenever they're finished. We'll let them have their thing.
Sure.
So they're happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
In the past, our mitigation has been, I think I mentioned this a few times prior, usually a 1-to-2 ratio.
Yeah.
Was it considered just to put one home in the potential middle and, pick one of the other lots to also assist in the mitigation?
Well, there's the balance between alternatives and meeting the development needs of the applicant. So it was felt here, while there's the purchase of 3 lots of record, developing 2 and offsetting it with the 1, is a reasonable way to approach the subject in a way that meets their development needs and, preserves the functions and values of the wetland as a whole.
Do you happen to know how close the closest wetland to this area is? Or is this kind of
North of this, I
standalone?
don't know 100%, you know, because typically we don't go on other people's property.
Right, yeah.
You know, the backyard of the property here north is, you know, a typical neighborhood property where it's lawn and, you know, is there some, you know, remnant flow along the tree line? There could be, but, you know, my surveys don't extend, you know, beyond the property lines here. And then again, as you go farther down south of South Beechwood, this kind of flows into the gutter flow. And there's like a wetland, you know, maybe 200 or 300 feet downstream, but it's just kind of like a roadside, you know, wetlands kind of embedded in the neighborhood and then drains off to whatever drainage system is within Great Neck, you know, development.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty developed in that area, right?
Yeah, they're all little, like, you know, the side lots that are in between the developed areas that weren't built because, well, there was a stream there.
So these houses have basins?
No.
No, that's
basement.
No.
another thing to keep in mind in talking about what could fit on the lot. I think it's important to point out, you know, this footprint of this house is 840 square feet. You know, that's a pretty small footprint for a house. You know, these are truly beach bungalows, you know, for the applicant's family to enjoy.
So there'd be no garages?
Can't say whether or not there would be a garage. It's possible. There's not a house plan at the moment. It's possible you could have a garage on the first floor and living space above.
Oh, so that would be included in the...
Yeah, it wouldn't be additional.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the footprint. The 840 square feet is the footprint.
Is there a lot of ledge on this property that you would require, you know?
No, so
blasting?
typically in looking at the U.S. soil map, it's all listed as Sutton soils, you know, and it's dense glacial till, but it's not ledge. So, you know, but yeah, you know, big rocks. So, you know, that's the tricky part with, you know, when you come in here for mitigation, if you were to increase the mitigation size, you know, the ground surface is very stony. So now you start opening up a bigger, you know, disturbance, an earth disturbance around, you know, the existing wetlands. So you're just introducing, you know, another avenue for sedimentation, erosion to kind of migrate down into this way, you know, and then go downstream and, you know, increase turbidity, yada, yada, yada. Sorry.
So just another question, there's a pipe from the property above it?
Yes.
That runs into it?
That's me.
What would you do with that water? I mean... you
Well,
just-
so that water, I'll relay it back to, but I mean, that water's conveying to this water quality basin.
Right.
And so, you know, the engineer has calculated for that additional input.
Okay.
I believe the plan is to cut it off at the property line, right?
Right, and basically direct it to the rear,
So this
to the
will
new
act-
pipes.
This will actually provide kind of more stabilized receiving environment where currently it just, you know, discharges the daylight onto the property.
We did propose a permanent erosion blanket in that area as well.
So on the day of our site walk, there was, on the road, a significant amount of like washout from properties and things. And clearly the drain in the road was, you know, while it's there, it's not really used. It appears the roads have become the, you know, water runoff. What is the involvement there with the, you know, the drainage on the southwest corner?
So there'll be a pipe from the wetlands that will allow some of the water to flow out of there to a yard drain.
That's the area.
As soon as the pipe hits the right-of-way, well, actually, when it hits the catch basin, it's town property, so we have to put a 15-inch pipe in there. But there'll be a catch basin in the road and a slotted pipe from the catch basin southerly to the drainage ditch that you might recall seeing.
So your wetland is adding to the needed drainage or the opposite? I'm sorry if I'm not catching what you're saying. Are you saying the road's going to supplement the wetland or the opposite?
The drainage is going to continue to be in the same point of origin that it originally was. I mean, so originally the flow, instead of going this way, is now going to go, you know, 25 feet around, and it's still going to come out at the same exit point. They're just providing a more formalized way of it getting to that catch basin. Right now, it just kind of bleeds over there.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't seeing it that you were taking road water and bringing it onto the
Yeah,
site.
no. It's flowing off, yeah.
The way I saw it when I was out there for hydrology for the couple times I've been on season, you know, the wetland ends here, you know, the catch basin is catching some of it through overland flow and some of it from the road,
and this is, I think, giving it a better, formalized, more stabilized access to get in there instead of doing what it's doing now.
Okay.
And it's really intended to just take some of the overflow because we want some water to stay there. We don't want to drain it.
So that third lot, there's not going to be any tree removal, you're going to just be adding the new plantings?
Correct. There will be some disturbance where we have to add the new pipe, but that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah, and that can just be like
Oh.
a ditch witch or something that's very narrow disturbance, just a bucket with disturbance.
We did forget to mention the removal of invasive species, so
Yes.
that will happen
Okay.
on site. That's
Yeah.
part of.
This can be accomplished mostly with just hand tools. So there's some multi-floor rows in some of this spacing. So they're gonna, hand yank that out, and then in those rock spaces and stuff, they'll install these plants.
All right, you guys have any other more questions? Dory, anything over there?
No.
I'm good.
You guys have anything else for us at this time?
Not at this time. If you'd like to ask anything further after public comment, we'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we've heard the summary of the application from the applicant, and we'd like to open up, as long as it's okay with you, Mr. Gaishel, any public comment. When you comment, please introduce yourself, please come up to the podium. And it's a pretty light crowd tonight. We've had it where there's 100 people in here, so this is an easy one. But still as important. Usually I'll say to limit your comments for 5 minutes or so and not to repeat the exact same thing. But if you guys happen to repeat each other, we won't mind because it looks like, I'm assuming there's only 2 or 3 people here. So, sir, we've seen you a lot, and we thank you for coming to the last meeting, and now we're here and we want to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
So we are officially opening the public hearing and public comment section. Thank you.
My name is Robert E. Van Coor. I live at 107 South Beechwood Road in Giants Neck Heights, Niantic, and I've lived at this address for approximately 17 years. The 3 lots to the south, which are the subject of this hearing, have been vacant for this entire time. There were several unsuccessful attempts to sell the properties over the years before they were received by Habitat for Humanity. The wetlands extend from a vernal pond that's located on the lot to my north and extends down the west side of South Beechwood Road to its intersection with Parkview Drive. The 3 lots subject to of this hearing have extensive outcroppings of granite above the surrounding land and are heavily forested, and the result that drainage of any water is very poor. My house was built in 1995, just after sewers were put in the Giants Neck Heights area. Construction of the house was made possible through 2 variances which were granted by the town. The first was allowed a variance to allow the offset of the house from the public right-of-way from the normal 30 feet to 15 feet. This moved the rear of the house out of the designated wetlands course. Now I have a double lot, 100 by 100, so there was more room to move the house, which was orientated north-south in its greatest length. The second was a permit for the installation of a 12-inch diameter pipe in the backyard of the house to carry any water flowing north to south to pass through my property. The pipe is covered with just enough soil to allow grass to grow. This was well before I purchased my house, but I've copies of the applicable town variances and permissions enclosed. The town also has a file which has photographs, color photographs of the installation of this pipe. During periods of heavy rain, the vernal pond to the north fills and sends the overflow to the south. I personally have never had any issues with flooding in the backyard. The pipe is adequate to handle the overflow. The lots to the south do flood, and they form several small ponds because of the fact that it's predominantly granite under a very small, thin layer of soil. And what happens is that we have ponds form, and it takes quite a while for these ponds to evaporate and or for the water to find egress. And what we have is an ideal mosquito breeding ground. The only drainage, that has been previously mentioned, was that at South Beechwood and Parkview Drive, there is what realistically can only be described as a ditch. Until recently, it was completely plugged. I wrote to Mr. Nickerson, and the town did make some effort to remove the blockage, but it's still not great. And in periods of heavy rain, we do have water flow from the vernal pond through the pipe at my lot, continue through the south, and actually quite frequently in heavy rain will spill out onto the road and then down the road till it reaches Parkview Drive. A portion of it will go into the ditch, but it's not really a great solution. I think that the installation of the pipe proposed for those two lots, as long as it is properly interfaced with the pipe on my property, either with a dry well or something of the nature, I would of course oppose any kind of blockage of the outflow of my pipe. It was done with town permission in 1995, and I think it should continue and be tied in with any new pipe for the two lots proposed. I also think that they should really consider moving their houses 15 feet for setback instead of 30. That would give them a lot more room in the backyard, and they could also possibly follow what was done at my property, a little soil, a little grass seed, and you got a backyard. And then I do think the installation of some form of proper drainage with storm grates along the remaining roads and properly installed to the Parkview ditch or in some way would be appropriate, because for no other reason than safety. It's a short road, but there is a pronounced downslope north to south, which can make things extremely interesting in the winter from the ice. So I think we really need to do something to remove the water and get it into the town's storm drainage system properly. I have a copy of my presentation and also a copy of the documents from the town, including inland wetlands permission and the zoning variance for this. If I can leave behind, since I do have copies.
Please.
You guys have any questions for Robert?
No, but thank you for that information. We were wondering if the pipe was installed, we didn't have records to go back far enough.
One of the maps I showed, one of my documents there, is an outline of where the house is located, silt fence, and on either side there's a little arrow that says, is further annotated pipe. And there is, that side, it was approved by the Inland Wetlands Commission back in 1995. I would kind of assume that your regulations are perhaps a bit more stringent now, but I can say that it has been effective in diverting the water and eliminating any flooding of my property. It does end at the south edge of the property, and I think if that the proposed development picks it up, there should be some way of a dry well, something to collect the water and then feed it into the pipe that they are proposing. Like I say, any attempt to blockage the pipe that's currently on my property would entail flooding, which I've never had a problem with, and be detrimental to the property and my quiet enjoyment as a homeowner.
Have you ever had any issues of blockage in the pipe that you currently have? Or
No, it's been there since the house was built,
And it's 12 inch, you said?
about 12 inches, yes.
Okay.
And sometimes the water will back up. I put pea stone and everything to help control any flooding, but it's never overflowed from the north to the south, and the pipe has been adequate. The worst I've ever seen it was when Sandy hit, and it was about half filled. And there's a lot of water. It takes a while, and it's got quite a little bit of a force, but it has never failed and not caused any flooding conditions on my property. And since it's the same water that came from the north that's now on its way to the south, it doesn't add anything to any flooding capability or possibilities.
So your suggestion that the variance be granted and the homes be moved 15 feet forward is to create kind of a continuance of your pipe system? And
The variance moved the house from 30 feet setback from the right-of-way to 15 foot, and that brought the house, the backside of the house, out of the designated wetlands area. And that was separate from the permission granted to install the pipe to carry the water. I got copies of all the documents that were in my property's file, but they didn't include copies of the photographs. But I have seen them, and it's PVC pipe, and it was put in and obviously inspected and approved by the town at that time. Of course, you're looking 1995, 1996, so I have no idea, other than the paperwork I gave you, what was involved. I know Mr. Heenan is still around. He was the first homeowner. He perhaps might be able to add something.
I'm curious why you brought it up altogether. I'm curious why you brought it up altogether to move the homes. I don't understand how they fit into your proposed recommendations.
Well, if they moved their proposed houses to the same setback, 15 feet instead of 30, they would have more room to play with in the back as far as putting in their proposed pipe and routing it in the most efficient manner. The normal setback would leave them a very small backyard. My house, with the offset forward by 15 feet, has given me a very commodious rear yard. And since that section of South Beechwood Road is a very short 1/10 of a mile long dead end, there's no consideration of traffic being an impact.
Thank you, I understand.
So, and for your house, that 15 feet, you say, helped you get out of the wetland? Because here we really can't. If we were to move the houses, even up to the road, I think, maybe. But we're
15 feet, we give them 15 feet more in the back.
right.
I think that would be helpful as they, with their putting in a pipe and finding a better routing or the best possible routing to their proposed wetlands. And I just want to make sure that their solution does not include the blockage of flow from the pipe that was installed on my property in 1995.
So you are, in a way, are you for this as long as it works in concert with your pipe?
I think it's a viable solution to, it would be nice to see the mosquito breeding ground reduced.
That, as proposed, if they were to work within a way to work with the pipe that you have that mitigates your vernal pool to the north, you feel that this is something that
I think we could work together. I know Mr. Hale, he's been across the street. And in fact, I've talked to him and showed him some of the documents as far as what they did with my house back in 1995 by moving it forward. And he knows about the pipe. I think they all know about the pipe because I saw him standing out there looking. And there was a party from the Wetlands Commission. You guys walked through my backyard once on a Saturday.
we just weren't dressed like this.
No, and the weather was crappier too. But I think if, we can sit down and work something out because, I don't want the water flow impeded because then it would flood my backyard. but I can't see any reason why we couldn't work together to take all the water in everyone. They would benefit by having 15 feet more in their backyard, and and the water would be removed. And if they do put in the drainage they are proposing, it would stop the water. The two lots south of their proposal, I've seen water come flowing out of from their fences and their yards when we have heavy rain. So, they wouldn't. I'm sure they would like to see a couple storm drains from that portion of the third lot, where that impacts the road, to properly route the water into the storm drain system down at Parkview. And I'd also remark that I don't know if that's been considered, but there's no public water on that section of South Beechwood. We're all on wells. So I don't know. I know they got to know that. Yeah. So I don't know what their plans are for water, but that's their issue. But I just want to see that I think, those changes are viable. I can't see why they would be denied, since they've already been granted in the past. And I'm willing to work with them so to make sure that the water that does come out of the pipe and discharges to the south is properly dealt with and flows into their pipes, so we all benefit and no one has any flooding problems.
Very valid concern.
And on another side, I wouldn't mind seeing those lots cleared up a little bit anyway. They're really gross. With the trees, the falling down trees, the choked weeds, and it's Habitat for Humanity was helpful, and they removed the tree that was just onto their property line that had oak wilt. And it doesn't take too much observation to look at some of the forestation that's on these proposed lots to realize that there's a lot of trees there in trouble. And I wouldn't have any problem seeing them removed before they hit something that I own either.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Banker. Banker, right? Correct? Thank you, sir.
I just have two questions. I'm a little bit behind the eight ball because we just bought the property on Laurelwood in June, so I never got a notification.
Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Marjorie Goodstein, 100 Laurelwood Drive.
Thank you.
We accidentally heard about this meeting tonight from a neighbor. We received no information at all, probably because of the title changes and all that. It's been so recent. Who actually owns the property now?
It's currently owned by Habitat for Humanity,
And this other gentleman is buying it to develop it?
if development is allowed, right?
That's what we understand.
Purchase?
Okay.
Sure they-
And Habitat for Humanity can do that, something that's been bequested to them. They can turn around and sell it if they want to.
That I don't,
I would imagine just like any other property owner, so there's no restrictions on the land.
Okay, so is the buying of the property based on the ability to do this? Or is the person going to buy the land anyway?
I would say it would be based on whether or not he achieves approvals. to
Okay,
construct.
all right. My other question is, based on what Robert said, is with so much granite there, is there spaces to put in wells?
Oh, yeah. We all have wells. There's 5 houses up there with wells.
Okay, no, I didn't know, based on the rock formation, whether there's places to do that.
Yeah, a lot of the questions, we try to listen to you guys, but it's like the 15-foot versus 30-foot thing. It's a zoning matter.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and that's not us trying to pass the buck. There's regulations from DEEP and our town that for where wells can be placed and all those things. And while they are very important, and we care about them too, really we're here to kind of.
Okay, no,
make
again,
sure
we're
there's-
behind the 8 ball, because we just
Yeah,
bought
no,
in
and
June.
I don't mean
You
to
know,
be,
so we are,
company-wide.
like, everything, we have public water, so, you know, everything is a little foreign to us right now, hearing about this meeting and trying to understand that apparently all those shrubs are gonna be behind us and one house is how it would be.
Which of the lots are you behind?
The two bottom two?
The bottom two?
Yep, yep. And there's really no, from our side, nobody has disposed of branches or leaves or crap, you know, like was suggested. Maybe on the other side of the road, but it's not been a dumping zone at all on our side, from what we can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to say from the public? The gentleman.
Mark Goodstein, 100 Laurelwood. I just have a question that we kind of skated right past it, was the ratio of wetland to mitigation. You said it was 1 to 2. I think it probably should be 2 to 1.
Yes, sorry. I
Okay.
said, typically in past,
Well,
in
okay,
past developments,
and-
it's been,
What they're planning, what they proposed is not 2 to 1. So are you going to give them approval to variate from your 2 to 1? Because if you do that, you're setting yourselves up for future requests. And you know, you're setting a precedent, and if you set it, it's kind of hard to backstep.
I would go to Mr. Gaishel for a response to that, if that's okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
In terms of the mitigation, 1 to 1 versus 2 to 1. Well, I would say it's the commission's policy. There's no specific regulation that requires what the mitigation should or shouldn't be. Well, our practice is 2 to 1. In this particular case, you have 3 building lots for record. We could be theoretically looking at a 3rd house. That said, in discussions with the applicant, this was the plan between town staff and the applicant that we came up with that would probably best mitigate the development of the northerly 2 lots. So it is the commission's discretion whether or not they would accept that 1 to 1. The other, in regards to the zoning matter, potential variance, that would be predicated on the approval of another agency. So this agency can't make a decision based on that. That said, if the agency was to deny the application, the applicant could then seek a variance. Maybe he would be approved the variance, being able to argue some sort of hardship with the land such that he was denied a wetland permit. That said, it doesn't guarantee that he'd be granted that variance because the municipal remedy is obtaining in the wetlands permit where the statute says the activity is regulated, not prohibited. And I will hopefully explain kind of the position I think the applicant has kind of come in and said, hey, I got 3 building lots of record. This is what the town has recognized. We have some case law from previous applications, particularly one on 16 Brightwater, where this very same thing happened. The courts remanded the application back to the agency and said the agency has to approve something to building the lot correctly. The landowner has a reasonable use of the land. So in that case, we did approve a footprint of the land. It was 600 square feet. It went up 3 stories. So I think understanding kind of that background and what's now before the commission, they now have to weigh whether or not the impacts to this wetland and the mitigation is sufficient at a 1-to-1 ratio.
Thank you, Mr. Gaishel. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Good evening, Mr. Upton, Gary Gosho, and other wetlands meeting. My name is John Bialawans Jr. of 61 Walnut Hill Road. I'm totally against this 2 single drilling being proposed for 99, 101, 103 South Beechwood Road in Niantic. Assessors map 714, lots 41, 42, and 43. Where are your wetlands regulations being adhered to for this project? It looks like all your regulations are on a blank piece of paper and non-existent for this project. Does this mean that this project is good for all taxpayers in the town of East Lyme? Niantic, that does not have, that they don't have to follow the wetlands regulations? The wetlands run straight through the middle of these property. The two houses are being built right in the middle of these wetlands. 15 feet that way, 15 feet that way, doesn't matter with this project. It's right in the wetlands. Can other builders be able to do the same thing in town? This commission will have a lot of applications for other projects dealing with wetland regulations if this project is granted, because it seems like there are no wetlands regulations in this town to follow anymore. And I will be one of probably the first ones to come before you with a proposal, because it doesn't seem like you're following your wetland regulations at all. What is good for one project is good for another project. This piece of property was given to Habitat for Humanity 19 years ago. So why wasn't nothing done then? The combined total of these three lots is 14,961 square feet. This project will disturb 8,350 square feet of wetlands. I do not see the 2-to-1 ratio in this project. At the last wetlands meeting, Mr. Hale wanted to clean up the area across the street from his house. He also stated he wasn't a builder, but he has built homes in Black Point and other lots in this area. I could go on with more facts against this project. It is the Wetlands Agency to enforce their regulations. Common sense on this project not to grant this application. I would like to tell the commission my experience with Habitat with Humanity. About 16 years ago, the better half and myself approached this organization with the offer of $75,000 modular home to be given to them. They asked a lot of questions, but I was prepared with answers to their questions. They asked how long that I could leave the house on blocks on our property, and we said for up to a year. The parties agreed, and Habitat for Humanity was looking for, while they were looking for a building lot. They called a few times, but the last call was the last straw. They were thinking about what else we could do for them. That we should pay for the trailers to move the houses, that we should pay for hire the crane to set the houses on the foundations. We thought how unappreciative this organization can be with a sizable donation, and wanted more from us. It took us about a month to find a building lot. They had a year. We built a foundation, and we made a 2-bedroom house into a 4 or 5 bedroom house, and we rented it out for a long time. Then we decided to sell it at the right time. We were totally surprised with the actions now, before, and we see that they are trying to get away with not following wetlands regulations that every other taxpayer in East Lyme has to follow. And I have a few more questions to say because of what their engineers and soil scientists says. What do the engineers and soil scientists classify these wetlands as? I would like to know, because I will use that on my subdivision. How can Habitat for Humanity sell this property that was given to them for their use by the landowner in his will? I heard from this gentleman that it was trying to be developed many times, and of course it was probably turned down because of the wetlands violation and everything else. It seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions every time there's a wetlands meeting for this project. If there is standing water, like the engineer says is going to happen, what does standing water create? Mosquitoes. How can wetlands water drain into town's drainage pipe, like was already said? These trees that this gentleman says that is invasive and everything else, and they were here way before you and I were ever thought of. And to say that as an excuse to let them build on here is really ridiculous. I could go on and on and on with this and everything else, and now the gentleman's talking with him and smiling, thinking that he was, right on what he said. But, the more seems like the landowners are talking about that live on that project know what real circumstances happen and everything else. I am really, really surprised that you are even thinking about doing this, because if you approve this, did you use one of your regulations to stop this? I really can't believe this is really happening in this town. And I can go on more and more with everything else that has happened in this town and everything else, but this is a good clincher. Build a house in wetlands and then drain their wetlands water into the town's drainage pipe and everything else. You can't put a dry well there because of the ledge. I have worked on that area and everything else, and it's really surprising how much ledge is up there and everything else. And I'm just, from experience, if the wetlands is staying there now for standing water, as he said, and everything else, then the water is not percolating through the soil at all because of the ledge and the soil conditions. And if they stop blasting and everything else, what are they going to blast to? Are they going to blast a pipe all the way down to the ocean? And the commission, it seems like you're knowledgeable and everything else. I do not see how this could even pass. I really don't. But I'm really sorry that I keep going on and on. But I would like to have the soil scientist and the engineer explain to me what they classify this wetlands as. Because I have never heard of wetlands being built on and filling in here, there, and everything else. It doesn't make any sense. Really. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bialowans. Q. Keep in mind, as a general matter, we have to receive any application from any landowner in town and hear them out. Whether we think it's good or bad, it's their right to bring it forth. It's part in why there's a public hearing tonight. We did have a decision at our last meeting whether we should or shouldn't have a public hearing. We are here this evening so that people like yourself can come and say what you think. And we do appreciate your comments.
No, I was here at the last meeting,
Good.
but everything that was said at that meeting is different now. How can you have conflicting answers?
Understood. Well, does anyone else from the public have any other further comment before we pass it back to the applicant, if they'd like to comment on the statements? Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
A couple of the things that I noted that from the public, and then I'll turn it over to Ian in one minute. The town engineer asked us there was some mention of connecting the pipes behind the houses, and it was requested that we actually do not connect them, that they are specifically owned by the property that they're on. So that there's a disconnect between, it's not a disconnect, but there's a pipe disconnect between them, so that everybody owns their own pipe. We definitely will not be blocking the pipe coming from the north. The whole idea is to continue that flow as it does today and protect the area. Ian, do you have anything? There's probably the,
Sure, I mean,
grab the mic maybe?
I should probably grab the microphone, sorry about that. You know, another thought is, you know, by having the pipes in, well, this is the alternative showing the 3 lots.
see it back here.
I'll get it so everybody can see it better. You know, the benefit also of breaking up the pipes is you get these additional, you know, treatment areas here. You know, so you get some additional renovation. You know, these will be vegetated. You know, so you get some of the enhancement properties of it going through that vegetation, the suspended solids kind of falling out, capturing the pollutants. So you get a little bit of renovation treatment before it gets into the wetland. You know, the whole idea here is that the hydrology is maintained coming through. And lastly, you know, there was concerns about downstream flooding. You know, this provides a process where you won't get that overland flow bleeding and some of those causes and concerns out on the roadway. It provides kind of that formalized point to keep hydrology going to where it historically went, and you know, gives us more of a formalized, stable environment than what's there now.
So you delineated the wetlands, correct?
Correct.
I see that they taper on the northern side, right where the first house is. Right?
Yes.
Would you say they exist because of the pipe?
So, you know, the conditions are exacerbated because of the pipe. You know, the upper limits here is somewhat poorly drained soils, and it's extremely stony. And you know, quite honestly, the fringes here are all disturbed from the past developments. As we've heard, you know, in 1995, instead of having a system like this, they filled in the wetlands, put that pipe in, and backfilled over it for a lawn. That's not this proposal. This is a much softer proposal with respect to, you know, really filling in the wetlands. It sounds like the condition up top was exactly the same as this, except that no mitigation was offered back in 1995, because really commissions didn't really think about it back then. It wasn't as big of a thing for small residential developments. It was typically, you know, reserved for larger developments. And going back to, you know, buffering for some of these southern properties, if I remember correctly, from looking at aerials and from when I was out there, I believe, you know, the forested portions here extend out farther to buffer this house from the property owners. I believe it was the Goodsteins. You know, they have a little bit more of a forested buffer than, you know, here the lawn's kind of cleared up, you know, closer to the proposed clearing here.
Have anything else on that?
Well, I do believe a question was asked about what.
Oh, I'm sorry,
defines,
the classification of the wetland would be classified as a plush-and forested wetland that's seasonally flooded. It's dominated by red maples. The surrounding vegetation is predominantly beech woods, shagbark hickories, red maples, yellow birch, stuff like that. You know, stuff that typically likes wet feet in a moderately well-drained soil.
And could you comment on the destruction or building on wetlands?
You know, listen, there are regulations for a reason. You know, Clean Water Act, you know, gave a mechanism to protect our environment here. You know, there's a responsibility on people have property rights and rights to develop property they own. So there is a balance between and permitted activities. So, you know, filling in of wetlands is a common is common with developments. It is. You know, a lot of times in residential developments, you know, where there's flexibility, you know, unfortunately this isn't a situation where you can really have avoidance and be in compliance with, you know, other regulations. There are lots of record, and, you know, I think the fortunate thing here from an ecological standpoint is, you know, these wetlands are, you know, typically thought of as low value or low ecological integrity, and that's really a function of the surrounding landscape, the fact that, there isn't significant standing water here for a long period of time. This time of year, you could have 1 foot out and 1 foot in, and unless you put an auger in the ground, you wouldn't even know you were in the wetland, especially on the upper reaches here. And it's also a wetland that's been impacted, as we've heard. It's disconnected from other systems upstream from, past developments.
The roof water runoff, where would that go?
It's proposed to discharge at grade, so over the lawn.
Okay.
Would you also care to comment on Mr. Ballwin's question about what he considers to be draining a wetlands into town sewers?
Again, I would say for that, and if the engineer of record has anything to say, this proposal was reviewed by the town engineer. So the town's very aware of the water that would be receiving. And again, I think it's important to note, water's going there now, and water's going to continue to go there. But this way, as I've said 5 times, instead of, migrating through here, and this is just more formalized. So if anything, this provides a process to better maintain downstream hydrology in present conditions.
Thank you.
Agreed. I don't think I have anything to add to that comment.
I have a question. So by diverting it with the pipe to the south there, do you think that's going to eliminate that ditch that everyone was talking about? Is that the goal, kind of, because it seems to flow, and then you're saying it was flowing like down the street, like.
So yeah, down the street. So from where the catch basin is proposed to Parkview, there's some areas that have been filled, and then there's some drainage ditch that apparently has been cleared recently. The proposed pipe will discharge into that existing drainage area.
Okay.
But it was designed to not drain the wetland. It's designed to just take some of the water.
Right.
So like if there's an increase in water based on putting in the houses, that's the flow we want to carry from the mitigated wetland to the road. And then the pipe in the road is slotted pipe, so it will just aid in any water that is in that area getting downstream.
Okay.
Do you feel that the, obviously, right, it's fairly well wooded now, the property? I know it kind of,
Yes,
it's shaded.
It's well wooded. The front portion here, where you get clearing and, the roadside mowing happens, there's a lot more invasives. They're sun loving, so they, when you walk down the roadside, you have your trees that are being pulled down from bittersweet, and you have, multifloral rose, very heavy, but as you punch through that, which I know is kind of a dissuader to kind of come in from the road, once you get through that, this back corner here, more open forest. It's kind of some big beaches that really shade out that understory. So, more of a, for lack of a better term, a park-like setting right in the back corner here, in this strip, in the front, having the road disturbance is a lot more thick with invasives and thicker vegetation.
So with the trees down and the buildings in place and the driveways and, the open sky, do you feel that will reduce the existence of the wetland?
Well, listen, the existence of the wetland will be reduced because you're physically filling it in for the houses. What we're trying to accomplish here is mitigating for that physical loss through, the plantings and the amendment of the soil in here to kind of create a, basically this will clean out the invasives here, right? So we're going to have a better functioning area here ecologically, and this area here will have, enhancement opportunities for the wetlands. And, again, building this 2-lot as opposed to a 3-lot, we're really preserving 5,000 square feet total of forested areas, mitigation area, and wetland area combined as a whole.
Your plan to mitigate bittersweet is?
They'll mechanically remove it, to the extent. Listen, the invasives along the shoreline are probably 40 to 60% of all the vegetation that's out there. So you make efforts to try it and you maintain it. I would say, Mr. Hale lives across the street. These are going to be, for family members, they have an interest in the property of maintaining it. It's not like it will go, some derelict lawn.
So while our job is to keep our eyes on the impact of the wetland, you would say that not only there's an impact, but removal.
Of wetland?
Yes.
Well, we are filling in wetlands.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
But we feel that we are appropriately mitigating our disturbance.
So I would say for the record, yes, while there's a physical loss in wetland, it's mitigated, through this upland buffer plantings. And the thing that's important to keep in mind is there's not a loss of wetland functions in Bethings here. I mean, this wetland essentially functions as the conveyance of high seasonal flows and some groundwater interchange. And, the high season, the flows are still going to be maintained. I mean, that's really the function here.
Were there any thoughts on a basin or a pond or anything more significant on that third lot?
You're talking about a pretty big ground disturbance, and if with neighbors' concernings with flooding and other things like that, mosquitoes, I don't think there's a lot of value in that. I don't think it gets you much other than potential problems down the road.
Sure, okay, just elaborate on your question. So if you took that upland area and actually created wetland, would that, you're saying that would be more detrimental potentially?
Well, what's going to happen is, there's big stones. That's a lot of earth to move. To be honest with you, I think the neighborhood would be more upset by clearing this land, putting shrubs in, this overall disturbance. I don't think there's a lot of value in it. These are mildly well-drained soils. There's a high seasonal water table there anyway. The wetlands that are existing, I mean, it's micro topography, right? So they're only 6 inches down from what's existing there. It's really, to be honest with you, not much of a wetland. I'm sure you guys walk through it when you're on your site walk. Really, the only hydrology that you're seeing this time of year is what's bleeding out of that 8-inch pipe.
If you have more.
I'd like to add something about the current width of
reintroduce
the
yourself,
roadway
sir.
and the...
Reintroduce yourself for the record.
State your name and address.
Oh, again? Robert Van Cor, 107 South Beechwood Road, Niantic.
Someone might have to read everything we're doing.
Okay.
So it's nice to know who's
All
talking.
right, but as I said before, the town zoning gave a variance for the front of the house to be only 15 feet from the edge of the right-of-way, public right-of-way, instead of the normal 30. However, if you look at the road, the paved portion of that section of South Beechwood Road is much narrower than between Parkview and Lee Farm. That's because when it was a dirt road when they put the sewers up there, and they basically paved the dirt road. The actual right-of-way is much wider, and by measuring from the front of my house to the edge of pavement, it's 25 feet. So there's 10 feet of public right-of-way that exists to the east of the paved portion of that section of South Beechwood Road, which means that you could put a drain there, put a pipe there. The ditch that was mentioned at the corner of Parkview and South Beechwood is actually within the public right-of-way to the east of the paved portion of the road. So the town's public right-of-way, you got some slack in there you can play with.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Goodstein, you had a comment?
Thank you. Mark Goodstein, 100 Laurelwood. I just have a question for the engineer or the soil scientist. That water has its natural flow. And right now it flows down that ditch and goes where it wants to go. They're going to redirect this water flow, which is fine, but please excuse my ignorance, but when you disconnect a pipe, water does want to it doesn't magically connect to the next pipe. How do you see this happening? I see a disconnect, it's going to come out of one pipe, but it's not going to make it out of Robert's pipe and get to the next pipe magically. I'm sorry, I don't understand how you're going to do that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that all, sir? Thank you.
So from one pipe to the next, it's graded, the ground is graded so that it does drain. The downstream pipe is set lower. So you have, from one pipe to the next, it's graded so that it'll flow that way.
Okay, you said it that way. Now I've got one pipe that's 3 inches lower than the next pipe, and I put it in a ditch, and I put rocks in there, and
Plantings.
6 months later, it fills in, and it's not there anymore. I don't know why the pipe is disconnected. I understand, yes, each homeowner is going to have its own pipe. Well, I mean, gas pipe running to a house isn't disconnected from one pipe to the next. It's all one piece. That's just the way life is. So,
I do understand that, so the pipes, if it's okay if I answer directly, I understand that what you are saying as why aren't the pipes simply connected to each other? And this was, they could be, but it was requested by town staff to have some area in between, and as Ian Cole mentioned, it also provides some water quality in between those, and a chance for us to do some planting and some slowing down of the water.
well, the mitigation area is going to look really nice for about a year. And then,
Sir, it's probably best if you want to go on a little bit, come up here and get it on the record for us. Which you can. I want you to if you want to.
Mr. Chair, I think if I may.
Yep.
My next question for the applicant would be, okay, so we have these pipes that are disconnected. What is the maintenance plan? So that we ensure that the inlets and outlets are maintained so that flow is continuing.
Yeah. I thought to ask about.
I answered that gentleman's question.
We've seen rain gardens, but not generally ones that are feeding and then having an outflow in the past, right?
Typically, yeah, they typically infiltrate.
Right.
I would suggest adding to the plan a maintenance. It's cleaned twice a year. We will have, we will add rodent screens or grates on the ends of the pipes so that the pipes themselves don't get clogged. But we can add right onto the plans or onto each lot plan to maintain, clear the pipes twice a year or after leaf season, that type of.
So how do you ensure that the maintenance plan is continued 5 years, 10 years down the road?
I think probably the best way to ensure that is the home, if somebody lives there, they would notice it was blocked and it would be backing up.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I would think the neighbors to the north would then have a similar action.
Ian Cole for the record, just
I think I turned that off, Ian.
There you go, now we're on. Just to add on to that, if it is a conditional approval, it now gives a mechanism for if there was ever a complaint from an adjoining property owner that drainage was messed up, it now gives town staff a mechanism to follow up as, a violation of the condition of their permit. So, and that, I believe, tags along with the sale of homes and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera.
My long-term concern would be after the permits expire, the house is built, right, 10 years later, permits, this is what we approved. Oh, the permit's kind of gone. I mean, yes, we approved it. So I may have some teeth to say, hey, you got to clean the pipe. And I could probably make the argument that they're not cleaning the pipe, that regarding maybe some upstream flooding, but it's depleting the wetland of the necessary water. That's a violation. So that would be my argument long term.
To that point, just to counter, I guess I would also defer to the engineer in terms of stealing water from the wetland over time. I mean, to everyone's point, where it's going to flow or where it's going to flow. And so, you know, even if these pipes did back up and they overtop, all the water's still going to make it to the same wetland in the same fashion, whether that's overland flow, whether that's you know, groundwater flow, it's still going to migrate to the same point. So I don't think, whatever happens, maintenance-wise, maintenance-wise, just to divorce yourself from that conversation, just from a pure hydrology standpoint, you're still going to always maintain downstream hydrology.
How far are those pipes from the neighbors?
Oh, I'd have to get my scale out.
I mean, because if they do back up, then you're affecting the people that live on, is it Laurelwood?
Well, these properties are high grade.
Yeah.
So really, the only property that there's a potential to affect would be this property here. However, you know, by this pipe existing here now, I mean, if water was ever robbed, as you know, maybe suggested by the plugging these properties, it would not cause them any concern. It would only alleviate their issues they have now or whatever perceived ones are in the future. So, you know, in a lot of these scenarios, really, it's a benefit to the downstream property.
The dimension you were looking for was from the Laurelwood property to those pipes?
Whatever the house
Easterly?
on the
Yeah,
other
it's
side.
about 20 feet. Those pipes are 20, 25 feet from that easterly property line.
But if the question was from the houses, it's much farther.
If you guys want to talk, best just step right up to the podium. Thank you.
Robert Van Cor, 107 South Beechwood Road.
Sir.
That pipe that's behind in my backyard was built put in when the house was built, 1995, 1996. I've lived there 17 years. Through Storm Sandy, through Eileen, through all that issues, and there's never been a blockage problem on that pipe. When the rain is that heavy and the water flow is that large from the vernal pond, there's enough force through that pipe to keep it scrubbed clean. And as the water decreases slowly, again, I've never had a blockage problem at all. And heavy water flow, I think there'll be enough to scrub the pipe. It's enough to scrub mine clean, and like I say, it had no problem whatsoever in the 17 years I've lived there. So I think something can be worked out, and that in reality, you know, it may not be a problem with blockage.
So the pipe has a significant flow when it rains.
When, like Sandy, Eileen, one of those 4-inch rainstorms we sometimes get, there is significant flow because the vernal pond is on the north to my house, and it is just a little bit more elevation. So you've got all the excess water and gravity helping it, and it goes through there pretty quick. Most of the time, there's no water. There's no water now. There hasn't been any water through it in a couple weeks. But in heavy rain, there's been no problem. There's been no blockage issues, and I've never done a lick of maintenance on it.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Howard Hale. I'm at 100 South Beechwood. I'm the buyer of the property, and I guess I'm a simple thinker. I own property now right across the street. We live up and also have a house up in South Windsor, and over the years of that in properties myself, it's always been my feeling is, and my neighbors, to maintain your property. Anybody has blockage in their sewer drain, you generally go out and clean it. And if that was the case, it would be up to a homeowner to clean that drain out. I'm just thinking back here. I'm simple thinker. That's what you do. If you own the property, you go out and clean it up. And that would be something if leaves or whatever got clogged in there. And Suzanne had mentioned that, put some kind of screen over it, whatever it takes, and Bob mentioned the same thing. So I just wanted to make sure you understand that if a sewer line gets clogged up, not a sewer line, but drainage, you just clean it up. Pretty simple to me. That's just my thought. I just want to put that out. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Marjorie Goodstein, 100 Laurelwood. Could I address a question to you?
Yes.
Are you going to buy the land if this is not approved?
I haven't thought about that, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's still iffy, that if it's not approved, you might just let it set as it is?
Well, I don't like the idea of it sitting there as is, because it's just a cluster of overflow, and it needs to be cleaned up over there. Yeah.
Okay, so you're undecided whether you're going to buy it or not, if this does not go through?
Marjorie, I think he's answered the question, and we want to make sure we kind of direct things through the
Okay,
agency.
the last lot, who is going to maintain the,
Well, we're going to own it.
you're going to own it?
We own it, and we take care of it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the other two will be sold? Oh,
Yeah, it's best if you work
Okay,
through us, then
so
then
the-
the applicant's representative can answer for them, and if the applicant
I'm sorry.
decides, no, it's okay, we understand, we're all
okay, I
in a
just
group.
wanted to know who
Oh,
is
that's
going to
all.
maintain the wetlands area.
Mhm.
And so the owner will continue to own that.
I'm going to let them answer, after you're done asking. I'm not going to
Okay,
answer for them.
and the other two houses are going to be on the market, or I'm wondering if they're going to be just on the market for anyone?
Whether they rent them, sell them, don't do anything with them ever, get approval and decide not to build, is not, we have no
Right,
value over
right,
that. We
okay.
really can't comment on that. That's,
I understand.
I understand that-
I understand. See, because in coming into this, I thought Habitat for Humanity was going to be building the houses. But now I understand that it's going to be sold and someone else is going to be building the houses.
understood. We had that same understanding for a minute also, and it took us to catch that and understand
Okay,
it ourselves.
so whoever owns that wetlands area, how will they be required to maintain it, or there'll be no, it could develop right up to what it is now, in reality. So there's no, it's just their land, anything can be done with it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Applicant, would you like to respond?
So as far as the property where the wetland mitigation is occurring in the existing wetland, that third parcel, the southerly parcel, will be combined with the middle parcel. So right now there's 3 lots, there will be 2 lots. So that it will be preserved as part of a lot. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, it's not sold off by itself.
Right.
To someone that wants to buy wetlands.
Yeah.
It's joined to
It
the
won't, and it
full-
won't
It's
be
no
able
longer
to
a
be,
lot of record.
it won't be able to be developed.
It's now
Because
now
it's part of-
Yeah,
lot.
we own 2 lots.
Yeah, exactly.
And we cannot put a sewer or anything on the other lot because it exists now as 1 lot.
Right.
And the
Right.
town will not allow
It's gonna be
that
joined,
to be
right.
developed
Right.
or.
Because zoning regulations have changed since these
Right.
lots were created
All right.
a long time
Maybe
ago.
to alleviate some concerns that anything can happen in the future, there's still a regulated resource on the property. So anything that would happen anywhere within 100 feet of this resource area has to come before the commission for permission.
Okay, well, it's nice to know it's gonna be combined by the same owner.
I just want to clarify, just so you know, we recently
Sorry.
changed our
Yes,
own
yeah, sorry.
300 feet.
Sorry, it's ingrained in my head. I'm sorry. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
John Bialowans Jr. again. Gary, you know from experience, maintenance agreements do not work. I know you do know this very well. Gary, you also know that homeowners fill in rain gardens and the town cannot do anything to them. I haven't seen one homeowner do maintenance on their property when they move in. It's just amazing how people do not take care of their property and everything else. I haven't even never seen using town pipes or a swale in the road for the purpose of draining the wetlands. And those two pipes that are not connected is useless. Where does that one pipe go to the other, and then the water coming out of the second one lower, where does all that water go to? And everything else. And another thing, the soil scientist has his mask on and everything else, but he did not clarify how he clarified this wetlands as. He said swamp maples. Of course, swamp maples are in swamps. That's a good indication. Is there a lot of soil underneath there? He admitted that there's not that much soil underneath there. It's all ledge. So all this water is going to be increased from the gutters and everything else, which they say that they're going to put it in a dry well. That means blasting. Then where's the water going to go as soon as it fills up? Are they going to put a 10,000 gallon dry well there to catch all the water from these roofs and the driveways and everything? I see more harm approving this than anything. I do not see how, the wetlands wetlands for this project cannot classify this wetlands and put a label on it. Is it an intermittent? Is it, a vernal pool? What is it? If the town classified this as wetlands, there's got to be a name associated with this. But I have not seen one word of what it's classified as. You can't hear him very good through his mask, but it's just that I would love to hear what he's got the answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any comment? I was searching for a soil type in your report. I don't see one.
For the record, Ian Cole again. The soil type is Ridgeberry. Again, this is a glacial till landscape. It's till, right? We have stony soils all over the place, but it is not ledge for the record. And I believe earlier we had stated this is a palustrine forested, red maple dominated forested wetland that's seasonally flooded. National Wetland Indicator status, so that would be a PFO.
Thank you, sir.
John Biala once again.
Hi, John.
I have never heard of a forest wetlands. That is new to me. I thought there was only a few classifications of wetlands, but a forest wetlands is what? The only thing that everybody seems like that lives around there, a few people, that they want to just clear all this property up so they don't have to look at it. That's what it boils down to, plain and simple, and everything. This man lived here for over 16 or few years, if not more, and everything else, and he said that many people have tried to build on these properties and it was denied. So why all of a sudden now that it's buildable and everything? I have never heard of wetlands, forest wetlands.
We hear your concern and we thank you.
I have never heard of that. If there is, Gary, can you tell me?
There is such a thing.
There is? Okay.
This typical swamp maple, you look for those in wetland, which is swamp maples. Typically what happens, because they are wet, the root systems will kind of project up, you get a splayed root system, it's usually
Right.
rocky, and you would otherwise call it forest. It's a wetland, and in the wetland delineation, in this particular case, back in 2015, Ian did the delineation, and he indicated that random soil profiles were observed across the property to verify the presence of absence of regulated wetlands in accordance with the regulations. And I believe in that report, he indicated that the soils are poorly drained soils within the wetland line to the Ridgeberry and Reister soil series. There's varying lesser soils are found within drainage ways and depressions on glacial till landscapes. It goes on to explain.
Okay.
So if you have that condition, which is wet, add a few trees, you now have a forested condition, so now you have a forested wetland.
Huh, okay, I just learned something that I didn't think was existed.
Thank you, Mr. Gates.
Because if it, but to do all this work and disrupt what Mother Nature put there, it lasted for zillions of years already. And just to put 2 houses on there and make a wetlands on the 3rd lot is, I don't know what they're thinking about. So in other words, anybody that comes before you, if they can show on their property that they can build a wetlands for wetlands that they are filling in and going to, come close to and everything else, it seems like you will agree that whatever another homeowner or landowner can do with their property. That's what you're saying to me right now and everything, but this was a learning experience, but I just cannot believe that, just because people don't like the trees that were there before they were born, that they can say that, well, now we want them gone.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, here. Can you answer that question about the maintenance agreements and about, what they, how come the town can enforce the regulations for rain gardens?
I can address some of that, yes.
Because I had put rain gardens in, and 3 years later, I go there, and they're not there no more. So why did I go through the expense of building one, having the town inspect it and everything else, and then, the people fill it in, and I just go, look, I can't believe it, and then there's special bushes that you gotta put in there and everything else, and I do all that work to get a CO and everything else, and then all of a sudden, 3 years later, the people don't do anything and everything. I know.
I think that speaks to our concern about, the maintenance of the pipes and, so we're there with you and we do understand.
Yeah, no, well, thank you, but it's just that there's never maintenance. This man probably cleans his pipe, or the water cleans it for him, but his water goes onto their property and everything else, so it's just one continuous down the hill, water effect.
Yep.
And everything else. So, thank you again. I hope I don't have to get up again and do this information.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Any other members of the public have anything to say? Mr. Daigle is coming up. Hello, Mr. Daigle.
Hello, Paul Daigle, 5 Riverhead Lane, East Lyme. Couple of questions, and then I'll sit down and listen to the answer to the soil scientist and to the engineer. What is the current flow of water off of the 3 lots? What is the estimated flow following development? The slotted pipe that you're putting from your catch basin, is it going to run all the way down the rest of the length of the road to the storm drain system, or is it going to dump into the existing ditch? And is the velocity of that water that is going into the ditch going to be at a higher rate than what it is now with the current conditions? Thank you.
We did Suzanne Choate, Design Professionals, once again. We did an analysis for the 10-year storm conditions, and the existing flow is 0.8 CFS. The post-development condition is 1.15 CFS. And the pipe that was that we're installing to take what I'll call the overflow will accept 0.36 CFS. So it will accept just slightly over what the increase is and bring that over to the catch basin. The pipe that is being installed from the new catch basin to the drainage ditch I'm sorry, the question, it will extend to the existing ditch. Does that answer the question?
So it's not going to another catch basin?
It's not directly going to the catch basin, it's going to go to the ditch, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat those first two numbers again? The current flow is 0.8?
Sure. 0.8 CFS.
And the
Post-development is 1.15 CFS.
Okay, thank you.
So net change of 0.35.
I was there on the sidewalk, and I'm trying to remember where this ditch is that we keep referring to, because I think in my head I'm envisioning something different. Is there any way, I know like it's probably off the map, but can you explain it a little bit?
So there's a catch basin structure.
Is it the end of the
Park
street?
View, and that catch basin has an inlet from a ditch. So this ditch drains into the back of the existing catch basin on Park View.
On Park, okay.
Yeah, right.
So like here, okay. But there is also like storm, okay. Okay.
I don't have the mic, but here's the proposed catch basin at the southerly part of this is this,
Okay,
okay? And here's the intersection with Parkview. There's a catch basin in the corner here at Parkview with an inlet pipe, and that ditch is right along here.
okay. So it's gonna be piped and then flow into the ditch that will then flow back into
the
the,
back of this catch basin. There's a pipe here into the
okay.
inlet pipe into the back of the catch basin. Did we catch? Do I need to repeat that?
That's where I saw the overflow from the road onto,
This,
onto the.
I mean, I don't, it has nothing to do with the current part. Why wouldn't it be piped the whole way? Like,
I believe our town engineer wanted the separation there, is that correct?
Correct.
Maybe you could explain, I had a conversation with him as to why he wanted that.
It's, in this case, what you're doing is you're providing some natural flow in between. And the request was also to have that as a slotted pipe so there'll be stone around the pipe and it will accept flow, some groundwater flow as well. So it'll help excess water in that off-road condition. There's no curb on the road, so the water flows basically, it's not really a ditch on the side there, it's kind of a swale.
okay,
So the slotted pipe will help drain that as well.
okay.
But the reason they're not connected is just for a break in and natural flow.
Okay.
How much topsoil is going to be brought in while you're up there? Can you remember?
So I don't have a cubic yard number for you, but the topsoil will be stripped first and saved on site, so hopefully reused. So hopefully the answer is no new topsoil will be brought on site, but there will be fill, of course.
So where's the soil pile going to be on this property? I mean, it's a small piece of property.
So with a small property, the pile will be small too. But I did not locate them on the plan. We can locate them in the front yards if that's amenable to you.
And are they going to be flush with the neighbor in the yellow house? As far as the grade? Eventually, when the
They'll
house is
be,
built?
the grade is higher, so the northerly neighbor, the grade is higher, and the road continues to slope down toward Parkview, so they'll be in alignment with the road grade. So they won't be the same, but they'll. Did I have the right words? Sometimes my.
Anything else, guys? All right, thank you. So at this time, if we don't have anyone else who wants to say anything from the public or the applicant,
I'm sorry, I'm coming up again. Well, why don't you say it louder if you're gonna say something? What you call it? They're saying that the grade of the land is going to be the same as what's there now, or is there depression there now, or what? Because if they elevate the property to get the water to shed off of their property and everything else, they're, making it all run into the swale, and as previously noted, that it goes down to the catch basin at Park's place. So they're using town's property for their drainage of their property and everything else. And I would like to say that, you know, why can this happen and everything else? You know, you keep, the way I was always told and taught is that you keep your water on your property and everything else. And if they just raise this a foot above the road and everything else, they're going to be diverting the water onto other people's property. There's no simple questions at all about this, what's going to happen and everything else. I have no, which it's really surprising how when she said that they're going to keep the same grade on there. So that means that the water from the road is going to run onto the, you know, the property then. That's what she's actually saying right now and everything else. And then she said, well, we could put a swale in there. Okay, you're going to use a swale, that's going to go down to the Parkland or whatever that road is, catch basin, which is town-owned and everything else. You know, thank you again, and shut up.
We understand your concerns. Thank you. All right. Not hearing anyone else? Is it okay if we close the public hearing for this application, Mr. Paschal?
Okay, if you have no further questions for the applicant.
Do you guys have any questions?
Note, I guess in response to Doreen's comments, I would just point out Mr. Shear's August 6, 2021 letter, his comment number 3. He just indicated that he wanted a note on the map in bold with an arrow pointing to the proposed yard drain and 15-inch HDP pipe, indicating that it's going to be privately owned structures and the town is not responsible for or will not perform any maintenance, repair, or replacement of either of these structures. So at the end of the day, the only structure we're responsible for is the one at the corner of Park Place.
All right. Anything else, guys? See any reason we can close this part, the public hearing? Everyone okay?
Just note, once the public hearing is closed, the agency cannot receive any further testimony. We'll have 65 days for any decision.
All right. Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we close public hearing.
Second that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion, questions? All right, we're good. Stop. All right, thank you very much for everyone that made comments and questions, and thank you to the applicant for your patience. We're going to move on here to the next item on our agenda, which is the acceptance of our minutes from the July 10th, 2021 site walk meeting. Having a chance to review those minutes, do we have any questions, comments, corrections, so on and so forth?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the meeting,
All
or
right.
accept the minutes from the July 12th.
All right.
12th.
July 10th, we were talking
Oh.
about.
I've got the 12th.
Sorry, that was a sidewalk meeting in the regular minutes. We can do them, we can do them as a bundle.
Oh, okay.
I just need exhibit P back.
Oh,
The letter.
the July 12th minutes just had the time was, it said 7.
Can we take them separately?
All right.
It's
But
easy.
I'm going to keep it easy and second the motion to approve the July 10th minutes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed, abstaining?
I'm in the
All right, right there. All right, that motion stands. Next matter is the minutes from the July 12th meeting, our regular meeting. It sounds like there's an issue.
Well, no, just a small, the time, it said the meeting started at 7:025. That's it.
And it probably started at 7:02 or 7:05, but not
Yeah.
7:025. Got it.
It's just that accurate.
2.5? All right. Any changes other than that, anyone?
No.
Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve. Phyllis.
Second.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
I'll abstain, yes.
All right. Mr. Deagle, oh goodness, I'm mixing it all up tonight. Jason, sorry. Next item, ex officio report. Mr. Daigle, I said your name early, see that?
Thank
Evil Daigle.
Paul Daigle, Board of Selectmen. We've only had one meeting this month. Couple things, if you weren't aware, that the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the townspeople at a meeting today's Monday, last week, I'm sorry, approved the additional funding to replace the roof on the public safety building, which is, the project's been put on hold due to some leakage, specifically not installing the IT equipment into the IT room, which has shown some leakage. So that's been approved, and once the contractor we place the work with the contractor, we should be able to come up with an end date to be able to get the CO, and building's about 95% complete. So the only other thing, we had a special meeting today to advance a recommendation on the first round of spending of the American CARES Act. We previously had approved that for several items here in town. And we had to reapprove it again today because it was not on the Board of Finance's last meeting due to it has to be acted on within 35 days, and we missed that. So that was approved. It's on the Board of Finance's agenda for this their coming week. I think their meeting is Wednesday. So other than that, it's been a good, quiet summer for the most part, and pending any questions from any of you, I'll do my best to answer.
Anything, Mr. Daigle?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Moving on, any new business? Any new business to add, Mr. Gaishel? Nothing? All right. There's a little bit of conversation questioning if Mr. Diebel is an alternate or a regular seated member. He is a regular seated member of our agency.
Oh, because it's listed on the regular meeting minutes as an alternate.
Seems you're an alternate now. It was approved and everything.
I leave for 1 month and I get demoted.
All right. Moving on, not having any new business, pending applications. We have the application we heard this evening for the public hearing. If we want to get back into this discussion here as an agency, we can discuss the matter with the public hearing now closed. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Gaishel? Do we have him any work for him to send off? To send him off with any work that we want him to do, any research on for us internally, so on and so forth? Are there any comments from any of you guys? Pretend they're not here.
No, I know it's a lot of information to take
There's
in.
a wall.
There's a lot of information to take in, so I'd be more than happy to kind of cull through that for you, the public hearing items, record items. I'd be happy to draft a motion, both favorable and unfavorable. If you prefer, I would point to the town engineer's letter that I pointed to earlier during the public hearing. We do suggest a bond amount, so I would just note that.
Do you know of any previously applied developed buildings on these lots?
I think there's been applicants who come forward and pursued it, but never made a formal application.
Oh, okay.
I don't recall any specific application being submitted, at least not to this agency. I talked to a number of people who looked at them, but not in this much detail.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Gaishel, could you comment on the catchphrase likelihood for significant impact for us, and how you see that when it comes to this application?
Well, I would start with the definition of significant activity.
Right.
Obviously, you know that, and that's any activity involving the deposition or removal of material which will or may have a substantial effect on the wetland or watercourse, or on the wetlands or watercourse outside the area proposed. Any activity which substantially diminishes the natural capacity of an inland wetland or watercourse to support aquatic, plant, or animal life and habitats, prevent flooding, supply water, assimilate waste, facilitate drainage, provide recreation or open space, or perform other functions. There's 5 other criteria as well, but I think here we know that directly filling wetlands is a direct impact that is significant by definition. So in terms of a likelihood likelihood, there's no likelihood there is.
Right.
That said, they are providing the one-to-one mitigation on the third, what we know is the third lot, which will become one whole lot. In terms of the maintenance, they indicated they'd be willing to add some caveats there, being that those notes aren't on the plan. I would recommend conditioning that condition, if you do approve it, that the maintenance agreement to be written into the homeowner, the deed, or something that otherwise they're never gonna. You can put it on the plan, but I think if you wanted it routine, again, how do you police that?
Okay.
But I think, as we heard during the public hearing, the homeowner should probably maintain the pipes themselves, just to the backup of water. They're not gonna want very much to it. So if that helps clarify the likelihood of significant impact.
Yeah, I just, I was getting at what my question was, which was, the existence of likelihood is,
There is an impact.
right. Okay.
So the builder would have to come in before us anyway, right?
No, the builder would make his application for a building permit, and as long as unless he substantially changed his plan, you'd be improving the footprint in that location. He'd have to meet this grading, so the plan that he submits has to match, for the most part, this plan. The grading has to work. If they change the footprint of the house, and they change the grading, then they may have to come back here to modify the approval.
Or if they want to add a shed?
If they were to add a shed, if you wanted to see them back, they would. They could apply and ask for it administratively. I could review it. The question is, what we're going to ask them for. They may have to, demonstrate that can the pipes handle the additional flow. Because if each lot has a shed, the next question is, can they fit a shed that will meet the setbacks? I don't know. I can't. I didn't look to see if it would be a zoning setback or not. But from a wetland perspective, I would say the roof runoff from the shed or accessory structure, whatever additional flow that would contribute, they may have to accommodate for.
I mean, because I'm familiar with the area, and it's a small house, and people always have a lot of stuff. So sheds are a big item.
So, we've removed the word likely, right? We're at significant impact to the actual wetland.
Yes.
Okay, and could you read from our regulations the required verbiage for a denial because of the significant impact? Just want to make sure I remember it correctly.
If I look under section 10, considerations for a decision, the agency may consider the following number of things. Criteria for decision carrying out the purpose and policy section 22A-36 to 22A-45. Agency shall take into consideration all relevant facts and circumstances, including but not limited to environmental impact of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and water courses. The applicant's purpose for and any feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed regulated activity, which alternatives would cause less or no environmental impact to the wetland water course. And C, the relationship between the short-term and long-term impacts of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and water courses and the maintenance and enhancements of long-term productivity of such wetlands and water courses. D, any irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetlands and water courses resources which would be caused by the proposed regulated activity, including the extent to which such activity would foreclose a future ability to protect, enhance, or restore such resources, and any mitigation measures which may be considered as a condition of issuing a permit for such activity, including but not limited to measures to, 1, prevent or minimize pollution or other environmental damage, 2, maintain or enhance existing environmental quality, or 3, in the following order of priority, restore, enhance, and create productive wetland or water course resources. Character, you also evaluate the character and degree of injury to or interfere with safety, health, or reasonable use of property which is caused or threatened by the proposed regulated activity. And finally, F, the impacts of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and water courses outside the area for which the activity is proposed and future activities associated with or reasonably related to the proposed regulated activity, which are made inevitable by the proposed regulated activity and which may have an impact on wetlands and water courses. That is area, the upland review area, and the area beyond, you can look at those and make a determination if that's gonna have an adverse impact on those areas.
Potential adverse impact,
Um,
which that's where we.
In this case, it's the impact
Mhm.
to those areas, and which may have an impact.
Right.
On the wetland zone.
So we don't have to qualify what those impacts could be, but we could say that there could be some, and thus there would be an impact on a wetland out off the building scope. Potential, right. Just using the word potential, okay.
So I have a question about the building to the north of South Beechwood Road. Seems very close to the road. And speaking about what Robert said earlier about getting that variance to bring the house closer to the road, that house, I can't tell the dimensions of it by this, but it seems like those houses in their current configuration, if they, and there's no design plan as of yet, if they could be turned and brought forward, this would become a non-issue, or at least a slight issue.
Robert built his house like this. He did, because he's on a double lot, almost a double lot.
I'm speaking about this one.
Right.
When I say north, I mean right
Yep.
here.
Yeah, that's his house. Right, so what he said he did is he got a variance to bring it up and he turned it on its side. So I believe the side setbacks would not permit if they put the buildings like that, would be their issue, I believe.
You're saying if these two rectangles were rotated 90 degrees, that would affect
It may.
how close they are
But
together?
it's also just not, they've not proposed it.
Yeah, well, I see that's totally beyond our, the only way we could conceivably push zoning to make that is if we denied this and said they have to go apply for variance.
Right, looking though, right, the way, at least from the delineation of the wetland, maybe on that middle lot, I'll give you that. If they spun the house and they got a variance from zoning, maybe that's a pretty feasible alternative. But this little kick out right here
Right.
wouldn't allow a home to sit there. And this one just doesn't work either. That's clearly why they've chosen, in my opinion, why they've chosen to leave that on the side. So maybe they've got one house in the middle and nothing there and nothing there.
Also, that does not do anything to deal with the standing water and mosquito population
Right.
that would infest that area. I think I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, it's fine. Any other thoughts, guys? Questions?
I have a question for Gary. Did you need to address that? It's something different, so if you want to,
Okay, because this is related to the kind of conversation.
yeah.
10.3 of more regulations, in the case of an application which received a public hearing pursuant to a finding by the agency that the proposed activity may have a significant impact, which sounds like we just did that, on wetlands and water, a permit shall not be issued unless the agency finds on the basis of the record that a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. Period. Making this finding, the agency shall consider the facts and circumstances set forth in section 10.2 of this section. Finding and the reason therefore shall be stated on the record in writing. You have to make a finding. It was to be approved.
I just had this is a simple question, but to merge the two lots, the middle lot and then the southerly lot, does that happen during the purchase, or that I know it's like a zoning thing, but at what stage does that happen? Like
It would probably happen, I would guess, subsequent to the purchase or at the time of purchase. But before he puts a shovel in the ground, in order to comply with this plan, you have to have that once.
okay, that's it.
Would you guys like to act on this tonight, or do you want to? I know the decision is generally to kick it down the line, but I think we could. Any opinions? Any strong opinions?
What's the timeline for this that we would have to have a decision made
65 days to deliver.
from today?
From today.
Okay, so
So
if we were to, I don't know, I think we should wait till the next meeting and then maybe Gary could draft it up.
Yeah,
But I think we've seen clear evidence that there's a significant impact. So, to me, what are you waiting for?
I don't know, I have a question. So
To digest the info.
it's a low-functioning wetland area, and I think that the mitigation is looking more from stormwater effects versus maintaining wetland. Understanding that it is low-functioning wetland, but at the same time, people have the right to build, so I don't want wetlands to be filled in, because you're not replacing wetlands, you're just really replacing the stormwater impacts from the development. You're gonna lose the function of the wetland. I don't know about this vernal pool that's north of it, if there are any potential hydrologic connection with the vernal pool above. I mean, they're just dumping water into the space, but is there any like amphibians back and forth? So I don't know, I'm kind of torn with this.
You want more time to decide, is what you're saying.
I do, and kind of, I guess, the guidance as far as right to build. I mean, are these were at one point deemed buildable lots, but now there's wetlands all over them, so you'd think they'd be unbuildable. But
They're building, what we refer to as building lots of record, so the landowner has a reasonable use of the land. Buys a lot, or a home, he has the right to do that.
The good thing is he doesn't own them yet.
The issue
Right.
here is that the subdivision was approved prior to the enactment of the Clean Water Act, so these lots were created prior to 1972, and unfortunately, wetlands was across all. There's a lot of wetlands that got filled in the 70s and such. So
because there's lots like this across town where there's wetlands on the property, and I don't want to say, well, yeah, I guess because it was a lot, go ahead and fill it.
I would agree. Unfortunately, I know from case law, again, I pointed out during the public hearings, Brightwater was a prime example of the whole lot was wet. He was entitled to build a home. He had to build a lot. There weren't no feasible improvement alternatives. In that case, they didn't even have a third lot, if you will, to mitigate what was happening. So that's therein lies the rub. So here we're trying to achieve the balance. If the lots are going to be built, they're entitled to build them out. Again, it may not be in this configuration. Could he achieve the variance? Again, as I said, you can't predicate your decision on that. It's something they certainly could go explore.
Yeah, it's just a lot of work they can do elsewhere that's really not something we can tell them to do, right?
Right.
Like we could say, hey guys, we can see one house, we can see better mitigation use, we can see building in the middle lot, not the top one, but that's not the application that's before us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can't play that game.
Yeah.
You could look at propose alternatives. What alternatives are there? Is to build one home on two lots. That's an alternative, but is it the most feasible improvement? In terms of when you start looking at feasible, what does that mean? Prudent, what does that mean? When you look at your cost, I think we start looking at lots as individual lots and the values there. We start getting out of the gray area of feasible improvement and saying it's no longer feasible because the cost just doesn't make any more sense. I don't know. But going forward, I mean, I think discussions with the applicant, this seemed to be the best way to mitigate any development on those lots.
You guys want to talk about it at our next meeting then?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think there's things to consider here long enough,
just
enough
digestion.
to prolong it, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we move on then?
Do you want any literature from me? Do you want me to draft anything up for you to consider? Give you some drafts of boilerplate language to get you started, and you guys can.
For an approval and a denial motion? Yeah, I mean, I think we can hammer that out pretty easily, right?
Yeah, like I said, boilerplate language, and then we just go back to the record.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Moving on to the next pending application of East Lyme, this agency, Wetlands Agency, to amend the Inland Wetlands Watercourses Regulations to add section 9.3 requiring the posting of a sign for applications requiring a public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Public hearing scheduled for September 13th, 2021. I don't think there's any further discussion on this matter. Can I assume that's the case, guys, and just carry right on?
Yes.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, you guys know that because of it was the notice requirements, we had to postpone. I think we wanted the public hearing for this tonight, but because we had to send it.
Yeah. That whole thing that takes forever. Old business, none. Reports, chairman's report, none. Inland Wetlands agent report, Mr. Gaishel.
I think you have the materials I sent out, the package of the ongoing enforcement. We need to follow up before Firster. I will note that they have contacted me, with them to get back in contact with them. They're questioning the notice, so hopefully I can track that down. I drove by his home the other day. Didn't actually file with concrete, so that was a good sign. So I'm thinking that's been alleviated. And then Mr. Bialowans, if you could just stay for 1 second during my report, because this is relative to the property there on 161 that you had asked about.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Bialowans had reported a violation. I took a look at this in the space between Mosswood Road and Route 161. The structure was demolished. It was ordered by the building official. So when I went to follow up with enforcement action, he told me that basically there's nothing I could do because of municipal estoppel. Meaning the town ordered the guy to take it down, and before doing so, and I guess speaking to Mr. Bialowans' issue was the building department kind of got ahead of itself without seeing about wetlands. So now I'm at the point where I can't bring down the enforcement arm of our wetland agency to say clean it up. And I'm going to try to work with this man to clean up this area and get it removed because it is a mess. So I think that's going to be an internal discussion with staff as to how we better organize around demolition permits and ensure that. But my understanding is that he ordered the thing as an unsafe structure, condemned it, had it come down. So I think it was a public safety matter that all the other circumstances. So that's where that stands. So it won't be a direct enforcement, but maybe indirect. I will get the landlord and help clean it up. I just wanted you guys to hear that. Thank you.
What about the show cause hearing for Weiss, cease and desist?
So in regards to that, I went out to the site. I have a copy of the plan here. The pile that I took a look at, based on my observations, was in compliance with the 100-foot upland review area in which he was approved. Therefore, I did not issue the order as currently submitted. I think incorrect without proper investigation, then that's some liability issues for me. But here's a copy of the plan. I know you can't get on that TV. This blue line here was the 100-foot upland review area. Here's the loam pile that he brought in that was 108 feet. The stockpile of soil, I believe, is over here on this, what is the compacted area where he proposed the two-story home. So the existing driveway, which has now been reworked, you pull in here onto that tracking pad. This was all kind of compacted gravel. That pile, I believe, is sitting right here. I did ask their land surveyor if they would go pick it up and show me on the A2, just to verify that it was outside the 100 foot.
I think our discussion, though, was we thought it was kind of like a new activity, especially seeing as he was trying to sell material online. And now he's got granite steps there stacked along the road for sale. Yeah, he really just keeps shooting himself in the foot, this guy.
So, I mean, we don't regulate use. I will, but, I mean, if those activities are occurring outside the 100 foot, I mean, if you want to go, so you're saying as a new activity, we can regulate him under the 300 foot for those?
I think that's what our conversation was.
Okay. Like I
And
said,
surprisingly, Dave Schmidt even backed me up on that one.
I wasn't thinking, I was thinking that he was approved under for subdivision under the 100 foot, and that all the activity that was taking place on the site, at least when I spoke to him, Mr. Reese, was relative to what he was doing after the subdivision. I did question whether or not the disturbance was really necessary for prepping sites.
Right.
And I said, it seems like it's an awful lot.
I think that's all we're trying to say. Is it's flagrant.
He didn't say one way or the other, it was flagrant or this or that. But I would say at least he's maintaining somewhat of the forest because the understory is kind of removed. So I will pursue that with Mr. Weiss, that the uses and the selling of material from his site will need a wetland permit, or he can take it up with zoning. And get approved for that. Again, but if you go through zoning, you have to go through wetlands for that particular activity. So I will move on that between now and the next meeting.
Anything else? How about the gas station permit that was,
Yes.
we said we want to see? That
Right.
needs,
I sent everyone the commission an email from the town council, the town attorney, basically saying I mean, they can come in and show you, but he basically said that the agency can't just revoke or overturn the permit that you issued, if you read his letter. So, that being said, they're moving forward with zoning, their application there. I don't know that there's anything more that I can do at this point in terms of getting them in front of this agency. My response, I guess, is that 13,000 square feet of disturbance in the up to the U area, 280 feet from the nearest wetland. And the report being that all the drainage is going to Atlantic River, which is a coastal area management zone. In my opinion, there's no impact to any of the water courses, whether it's a gas station or Walmart that doesn't serve this, or just an office.
so our agency voted that it needed to come before us for an application.
I already issued a permit.
Understood, but we revoked it. But
You can't revoke it, is what I'm saying.
where does it say that in our regulations?
Doesn't say that in the regs, but I think if you read Mr. Marco's letter, it supports that position. I did talk to Mark. He asked me if I wanted him to come tonight. I actually said, no, I don't think we need to. But he was more than happy to come and explain the legal process to you, so I can let him come and explain. But in discussing that, I think it points to the bigger issue is guidance. If the agency wants those particular items to come before it, I'm going to need more guidance, more clear criteria to say what projects are kicked to the commission, which can be issued administratively.
Yeah, I agree, because I think when we talked about this, and I went all the way back to 2019, I couldn't find anything in the minutes where we discussed how Gary could, approve certain applications. And I'm sure that we did talk about it at one point. But we've got a house here that you approved. Obviously, the gas station. I don't know if we could put a guideline as far as a dollar amount, thinking like a shed or a deck.
I was thinking
like
commercial activity too, like, if it's commercial activity.
Well, but you've got a house here, a single-family house with a septic system.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any ideas for guidelines?
I would say, rather than put a monetary amount to something like that, because that can fluctuate the economy, probably, going back to the fee schedule itself, we break that out by an area of disturbance. And the thresholds that I use is if they're moving 100 cubic yards of material, or they're 25 feet or closer to a water course, those are my thresholds to kick it to the commission. Which I think are pretty reasonable. If they're 100 cubic yards is a fair amount of material. 25 feet, you're getting closer. And I'm getting less comfortable issuing the permit. I certainly can come up with criteria, like our regulations use.
I guess, Mr. Gashel, I'd say, using your own judgment, is there a likelihood for significant impact? I believe a gas station has a likelihood for significant impact.
I believe it may not if it's
But it's
over 100
subjective.
feet from a wetland water course.
Because it needs to be
More
spelled out a
black
little
and
bit.
white.
Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking of a dollar figure, or as
Can't be
Gary said,
subjective.
commercial.
I just,
I guess if there's petroleum involved, is that clear enough? Like we could set that. If there's petroleum on site or sales of petroleum, or
I guess if you're going to incorporate that into your reg, I can look into some of the legality of that.
We're not going to have another gas. How many gas stations? Look at that little area. Can you have in that little area?
say that, and then they put one down.
Plus, it's not only that, not that it's wetlands, but you've got people who are going to go off from 95 and then try to get on to 395 in that little area. That's
It's a
like,
dangerous
I would
spot.
think the state would be a little concerned about that, particularly because there was a very large accident,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 years ago there. Yeah.
All right.
So, but I think I'd like to see this on the agenda for next month so we can discuss it.
What are
I
we
think
discussing, like, what's the limitations?
what the guidelines should be for Gary.
Oh, so you want to talk about guidelines on our regulations?
For Gary being able to approve something.
More specific guidelines for the regulations.
The difference between what necessitates administrative action versus
Yeah.
agency
Right.
action.
Yep. Great. All right. Sounds good. Anything else?
Do I need to make a motion to have that added to the agenda?
Oh, do we?
I know, put it in
the minutes.
It's in the minutes and then.
Correspondence enforcement, anything else, Mr. Gaishel?
That's all I have at this time.
All right.
The family members?
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
What would you like to motion?
to go home.
All right.
To adjourn.
To adjourn.
To
The time
adjourn.
is,
I second that.
Mr. Devel at 9:22. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, let's go home.